Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Flow Within. I'm your host, Tony G, and today I had the distinct pleasure of talking with my friend and an absolutely incredible jazz musician and just overall good guy. This is Dave Lawrence. Dave, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to talk to you.
I love this stuff. I love I've been wanting more opportunities to talk with fellow musicians, especially people that are trying to do it, for a living and stuff like that. It's such an interesting thing that we do, especially you and I, like what's your job? Well, I take my guitar and usually a whole crap load of cables and gear, and then someone tells me what time to show up, and then I show up 5 minutes or 10 minutes before that to make sure I'm on time, and I load up all this stuff, and then it probably takes 5 times longer than the gig, and then I play for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6, and then I'm done and I sing my heart out and hope to make some money from it.
How long have you been doing music full time?
My wife's awesome. She was really encouraging me to do music full time because I was a chef for a long time.
Really?
Yeah. So I guess I was a professional chef for longer than I did music. I graduated with a degree in philosophy and religion, and in the middle of that, I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer, do any of this. I love food. I want to be a chef, and I started working at staging and doing little restaurant work, and I moved to Fort Collins immediately after that. I started working at Lucille's, the Cajun Creole breakfast restaurant, short order cooking, pizza, everything, and then I just worked my way up and up and up, and my big goal was I wanted to be the head chef of a brewery, like a brew pub, because I love beer and I want to do beer dinners and stuff. And the Vine Street Pub, of course,
I remember,
which hasn't unfortunately reopened yet from the pandemic, but the Mountain Sun Pub, Southern Sun Pub, Longs Peak and Longmont, they're an amazing chain. They've amazing owners and stuff. And I was the chef there for 3 or 4 years. And then right as my wife and I got married, it was that big transition in your life. Usually, your partner isn't just quit your steady job while we're getting married. It's more let's settle down, have kids, buy a house. But my wife was no, go for it. So 3.5, 4 years ago, stopped doing that and started doing the music full time, which was scary. Yeah. But, it's cool. It's being an entrepreneur kind of, hustling and playing shows. And I learned quickly you have to start a lot of projects. You can only play so much with one group. So I kind of started doing the different stuff. But
I haven't worked with you directly, but we have a bass player in common. And every time I talk to Kevin, Kevin's always like, all right, we're driving to Pagonia, and then we're going up to this place, and you guys just are gigging all the time. And I know that you're the lead kind of on that. So I know that you're one of the hardest working musicians in Denver. So what brought about that drive?
Well, speaking of driving around, like today is so I got up at 6:37 to pack my bags and get ready, make sure I have to look cool for this podcast. I hope I'm doing a good job.
You look fantastic.
And then I had a gig at the Denver Botanic Gardens at 9 a.m. today.
Nice.
So we did our Botanic Gardens gig with my really good buddy Hank from a band Odessa Rose. We did a little duo. Then I'm here, and then I'm gonna get some food and head down to Buena Vista tonight and go see Billy Strings.
Oh, nice.
And then tomorrow we have a wedding in Durango.
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot of driving, but I don't know. The drive is just it's just insatiable desire to be playing my guitar for people. I think a lot of musicians, they really, really, really don't like the business side of it. It's just really hard and tiring, and it doesn't feel good necessarily. And there's a lot of aspects of it that I don't enjoy per se, but I guess I am a little bit of a sucker for the sale, the kind of when you get the gig, that feeling of someone's let's, you're booked, let's do this date. I get off, I'm yeah, I got the gig, and I like that feeling. So booking kind of just came natural to me, where it was well, what do? You get a nice, good quality picture, and then you get a decent, at least decent quality little video. Yeah. It only has to be 30 seconds long. If it's a full song, that's great. And description of you that is concise, that is like 4 sentences long.
Yeah.
And if you send that out to 100 people,
Yeah.
you're going to get gigs.
Definitely.
You know, like that's in this town. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know any other towns. You know, I've done a little bit of touring, but in this town,
Mm-hmm.
you do that. If you have those few things, and then if you show up and you're good,
Mhm.
you know, and you deliver, you're going to get called back.
Yeah.
And you know, and I've sort of built that reputation in this town, that to be reliable, to, you know, answer my emails quickly, which is, musicians are also really bad at that.
Mm-hmm.
And just be there for people. And I do a lot of the work is private stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of the work now is like really fun public facing gigs, big festival work.
Yeah.
La Pompe just sold out Dazzle. We have a show coming up in Boulder at the Chautauqua Community House. So it is a whirlwind of different opportunities and like really random gigs.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
And I feel like you fit a really cool niche too, because La Pompe is like gypsy jazz. I'm not that familiar with the jazz scene, but I mean, I can't imagine there are that many more gypsy jazz bands in Denver. So I mean, it's really cool that you kind of have like that market almost cornered.
Yeah, there's a few actually. It's funny, gypsy jazz or gypsy jazz. Let's get into that style a little bit for listeners. It's I basically equate it to like if you think of Midnight in Paris or you know, some of those Woody Allen movies, the soundtrack where it's this, you know, guitar, violin, feels like you're in Paris, you know, in a cafe or something like that. There's basically that's kind of the sound, but it's basically someone named Django Reinhardt and Stefan Grappelli. Django was the guitarist, Stefan was the fiddle player, and they had a 5-piece band, and they were listening to Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong and all the early masters of American jazz, like what we call swing music.
Yeah.
And they were just taking that and converting it to the string instruments. And instead of it being, you know, trumpets and horns and drums, one of the guitar players is like playing the drums, is the percussive thing, and that is called La Pompe. That's where we got our name from.
Interesting.
The fiddle player's playing the melody lines, you know, and Django's, you know, doing his fiery melody lines as well. So they call it gypsy jazz because Django was a Romani gypsy. Some people consider it derogatory. I don't think Django did. I don't think in some ways people will say that he would be offended. Not offended. I don't think he like offended easily, but like he wasn't playing gypsy jazz.
Yeah.
He was just playing jazz. So I think in some ways he would be like, well, I'm just playing jazz, you know, my like what it is in swing music. Some people also call it hot club jazz because Django's band was called the Hot Club de Quintet of France. So hot club jazz. But either way, it's this early swing stuff, and it fits really well to a lot of events. It's super fun. We play the Mercury Cafe Swing Dance. We play a big swing dance festival called the Speakeasy Soiree that I help run and host. And then we have the more intimate listening room jazz shows like Dazzle, like Nocturne, a little bit at Nocturne, and Vale Jazz, Evergreen Jazz, City Park Jazz, stuff like that. And then recently I just started up another project called David Lawrence and the Spoonful, where I do like kind of getting back to my blues roots, basically.
Nice.
Playing stuff like Taj Mahal, Woods Brothers, but mostly original focused, and a little bit of like early honky tonk, Hank Williams, things like that.
Yeah, man.
I just showed Tony my Resonator guitar. It's like it's all metal, so it like weighs like 20 pounds, and it has that really cool twang to it. And I've been playing a bunch of old Taj Mahal stuff, and
it's super cool.
Finger picking.
Yeah, it looks great, man. And your playing's on point as always. So keep that up.
Thank you.
So what inspired you to kind of make this new outfit that you're playing in?
La Pompe, we write original music, and I love our original music, and I love our band. We've been working at it for 7 years, and we've released 2 full-length albums and an EP, and we're sure to try to get in the studio hopefully in the next year and get another EP and some more original material out there. But it's like it's important to all of us that there's like a cohesive sound, and it's not like has to be like sounds like it's specifically from the 30s, or it has to be like these chord progression, like, you know, it doesn't have to be this like strict traditionalist hot club gypsy sound, but it does have, we all do want it to have like an oeuvre, like a feeling of that music, and be inspired by that music, and of course play some like material from Django, of course, in every set. And like limits are good. It's good to have that, you know, it's good to have like this. It's good for two reasons. One, when you're trying to create something, if you just say, oh, like food, I'm going to go in the pantry, I'm going to make anything, and you just take all these random ingredients and you like shovel them together into this dish, the person eating it's going to be like, oh, this is kind of weird. Like, what are all these things, you know? Yeah. But if you're making like Italian food and you make really good Italian dish, even if it's your flair is on it, like that gives you this sense of directionality in your creativity, and you're able to make something that can be really special. Yeah. But conversely, also for the listener, like listeners and booking agents, they like to kind of know what it's going to be, even if they haven't heard it. If you can describe it, it's this kind of jazz or it's this or that. And the listener, they can kind of wrap their head around like what it is. And it's my new project. It's kind of funny, like as I'm saying it, like it's still a little bit in the works. Like when I very first started it, it was kind of like that opposite of that, where it was like taking all these different things everywhere and trying to push it all into this thing. And what is this sound? And as we've really been honing in on it, it's been like, okay, this is the sound. You know, it's that bluesy, original roots bluesy kind of thing with pulling in, you know, folksiness, pulling in some jazziness, pulling in some old school country, but it's starting to have that, develop that oeuvre in itself. But it does allow me to just focus my creativity on this different sound and this non-jazz swing stuff that I wanted to work on. So
you only have Italian food so many times in a week, you know?
Yeah, exactly. and as the the point you're bringing up from a booking perspective, you know, there's only so many times I'm going to send out an email to whatever venue like, hey, have La Pompe, but you know, maybe La Pompe plays, you know, once a month in Denver, and then the Spoonful can play, and you're giving people a totally different set and a different thing, and you're developing a different fan base too. So it's really interesting and fun to kind of think of the projects as these little seeds that you're kind of watering, and creatively, but also, you know, energetically. And La Pompe's so cool. We have this really fun fan base of people that love swing dancing and love the early jazz. And, you know, when we put out a show, like people will definitely pick up on it. When we put out new material, people are really stoked, and it's really a special connection that we have. So
yeah, you guys have built a great following with that. That's really cool. I keep on trying to come catch you guys, but you know, the peril of musician friends is that we're always gigging the same nights.
I know. It's so hard. Well, that's why this is awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked to be chatting with you. So when you write songs for both of those projects, for La Pompe and for the Spoonful, are you kind of the main force driving behind that, or?
For David Lawrence and the Spoonful, my obviously I'm doing the composition for it. Well, maybe not obviously, but I am doing the composition for that. But I have a really great group of people that play in that band, primarily Coleman Smith, who is violinist for the Rapid Grass, a really great bluegrass band. My buddy Gary Sloan on bass, another bass player. I work with Bob Songster frequently, and Doug Bainbridge on drums. Also a producer buddy that's producing the album, Tom LaFond from Banshee Tree. Okay. He hits the skins for us, and he did all the drumming on the album. And there's been a lot of collaborative, compositional, and specifically arrangement kind of collaboration with the group. So Coleman's ear for melody, for chord stuff, and for arrangement is like unparalleled. That's so when we were going into the studio to really hone in on these songs, where I've been like, here's that basic framework. It's like, okay, here's how we can really shape this part, and here's where we can really extend this section, and here's where we can really build here. And that's really what makes a song. I mean, you can have these little, you know, the basic melody and the basic chords, that's important, but when you get the feeling of the song and the arc of the song and the dynamicism and where it's all going, you really need that. So it's been great in the Spoonful. With La Pompe, the main bulk of the writing has really kind of become everyone in the band. Andrew Hannum is the other guitar player, and his compositions are so wonderful. Like sometimes they're really intricate and detailed and just sophisticated is a way that I would maybe describe it. And the melodies are really take you on a journey. And we've collaborated on a lot of stuff where he's kind of written the melody and then I've written and the chords and everything, but I've thrown in vocals and maybe adjusted some stuff.
Yeah.
Eric Fellenstein, our fiddle player, had some awesome tracks that he wrote on the last album, and he has a solo project that is coming out with a bunch of great material soon too, and has a whole world of compositional stuff. So the last album that La Pompe did, we actually took some of our band fund money and we rented a cabin in Bailey, Colorado, which is like 285 down south, and we spent I think about 3 days. Everyone had material that they were kind of working on, and we just sat in the cabin for about 2 days straight, just working on stuff, taking breaks, making food, going back to the writing process, and we ended up with 10 tracks that were all really fun and great and super. It was a really cool process. We had one song that I had this lick that was like boom boom dum 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 dum, and it was just this like little riff, and then Eric went, wait, what if we did this? And then Kevin's like, what about this part? And then all of a sudden we had a whole special melody to it, 3 parts, a freaking interlude breakdown, and it was like, you know, we whipped it out, and that was probably the most special for me, because it was like there wasn't really anything brought to the table. It was like this little idea that wasn't even an idea, and we got a full fleshed out song from it, and that's
so
really cool for me.
The power of just like playing with musicians that you jive with, I think, is just so incredible, because sometimes you're just like, I just have this little idea, but it just hits everybody in a different way, and everybody has their own flair to add to it. And before you know it, like you said, you've just got a whole track. You're just ready to go.
Yeah,
I think that's so cool. That's something I miss. I mean, I now have a new project, so I've been working as well with Kevin Laxar, and it's really cool.
Are you keeping the same branding for the?
Nope. This one's called Polka Dot Palace. So we've got a new band.
Oh, that's sweet.
I wish I could tell you the direction, but we just haven't really found it yet.
Well, I would say that name doesn't evoke like a specific genre to me.
Yeah,
which is good.
It's going to be a lot of fun. The stuff that we have probably 70% of a set done. So we're looking forward to getting some shows probably early next year. But it's going to be weird, but it's going to be an experience. So like you'll have to come see us play live, because I was thinking about this. When we record the music, I think it just won't have the same kind of feeling if you're not seeing it live, if you're not seeing the experience of it itself. You know, there's just a lot of stuff that's just been going on in my head as far as the presentation of the material. And so I think it's going to be a very, like, you have to see us live to kind of really get the full meaning out of what we're trying to do. So it's going to be fun.
I love that. I've been thinking a lot more about the live presentation. I mean, I'm really like a live performing artist way more than anything in the studio. Studio to me is this like foreign, scary place where you have to be perfect. Yeah. And it's stifling to me in some ways. But through this process of creating this album with Tom and Jay Elliott, our mixing engineer and production engineer, it's been a lot more freeing, and like sort of I've just been getting into the flow of it more and like kind of understanding how it works, and like kind of taking a little bit of pressure off. Like it's funny, like I have this weird thing where when it's live, I don't really need it to be perfect, because for me it's like a building like a ice sculpture or like something where it's like you build it and it's gone, you know. It's like, even though, but like live in some ways has to be more perfect, because it's like you only get one shot. You only get one shot to do that song for that group of people. But also for me, it's like it's so ephemeral, and it's just like it's fleeting. And in that way, like I can just be in the moment with it and sort of accept, like, oh, if I flub a little thing, like who cares, you know? Like that's just what it was for that performance right there, you know? But the recording process, even though it is like, well, that's what you're gonna have forever, it's also like you can do it again, you know? So it's more just like relaxing and sort of trying to find that like flow state, or kind of finding that like authentic energy that you might be doing live, funneling into that performance, and then realizing like, hey, like you could just do it a few times, you know?
Yeah.
So it's been taking me a while, but the more I've been doing it, it's like anything else, you know, you got to practice it.
Definitely.
And it's not, if I can play 200 shows a year and it is not translating to the recording process. It's just a different thing.
I pull from a very different place. Like you said, when I'm in the studio, I feel like there's so much more pressure. Whereas when I'm playing live, I can sell myself. I can just be like, all right, well, yeah, I'm probably going to make a couple mistakes, but at the same time, I can still just really just put on a great show. And half the time, people don't even notice when you make a mistake. You know, you're like, oh, I played that wrong chord, but you just keep on pushing. But if that's recorded in eternity, you know, then every time you
even if no one else notices it, you'll notice it.
Exactly. So for me, I feel like I play more dynamically. I play with way more emotion when I'm doing it live because I can feel it. Whereas when I go to the studio, I'm a lot more timid and meek because I'm just like, okay, Tony, play the right notes and just hit, you know, this stuff right. But when I listen back to it, I just go, that's just kind of flat. You know, it doesn't have the same flair to it as when I'm like standing in front of a crowd on my knees, just like ripping this solo. And maybe the solo's not perfect when I play it live, but the emotion kind of covers that up.
Yeah. I've debated with like the idea of like set up studio time and then like get like 10 people there, you know, like, and like, or sometimes I try to think when I'm in the studio, like I am performing right now, like I'm performing for the engineer. I'm performing for, even if it's just the engineer, you know, like try to think like that a little bit and try to think, you know, because I mean, you and me, I think are really similar in that, like that, the energy of the crowd, the energy of the transference of your song and your heart to someone else. For me, it's why I do it, you know, and you're not really doing that. That's why all these, like, what do you call them? Like the live streams and stuff during COVID, it was so, you know, it just didn't do it for me. Like, it was like, well, the whole point of me doing this is because I want to have these strings vibrate and then they hit you, you know, like in your chest, not like go through a little thing and then turn into ones and zeros that get sent up to a satellite and then that satellite turns into something and then it sends another ones and zeros and then your phone picks it up and then it turns it into an image and then you get the little things and then the waves comes to you. That's not what it is.
And these like little hearts just are like, yeah, you're doing a good job.
Yeah. And it's like, it was better than nothing, especially in the beginning when people were sort of like really into it and kind of like stoked to get something and we're all like super trapped. And it was like, okay, like there was cool people were commenting and, but it got really old for me, like real quick. And I realized it just wasn't what it was. I'd rather just play a song for my wife or.
No, I'm totally with you. I mean, and sometimes I get a little sick of the cover gigs because, you know, I don't really get to show who I am. I'm just playing somebody else's music. And I like to change it and make it different, but at the same time, everybody's just hearing somebody else's song. Whereas when it's like, okay, I'm going to throw an original at you, people can tell the difference. I've had people be like, play an original. I'm like, you don't want me to play an original because it's going to really put a damper on the mood. They're like, no, just do it. And then you play it, and they're like, wow, that's the most engaged I've been with you this entire night because I could feel that you meant every single word of it. So I think even for me with cover gigs, sometimes it's hard to just put myself in front of a crowd and really believe in what I'm playing because I'm playing the same song I've played literally over 1,000 times for a crowd. There's
this, I think about that a lot too, like on stage, you know, like it's like you're an artist, right? You're an artiste, you know, you're a musician, but you're also like kind of like a craftsman, you know? And like sometimes I think to myself, like this gig is like a working gig, you know? This gig was like more of a craft than an art, and all the gigs are a combination of the two, you know, because your craft as a musician, knowing your chords, knowing your scales, whatever way you think about music and whatever your technical approach, like you had to develop a style and a thing that is like takes a lot of patience and a lot of time. You have to have your tools, you know, your guitar has to be working, your pickup has to be working, you have to be sending out a clean signal, you have to have like the right, you know, you have to have sound that's working and getting to them. And all those things are, you know, not like the, you know, cool song you made. It's like this whole other thing. And sometimes I just think to myself, like, you know, I'm a professional. I've developed this craft and I'm giving them this really clean, awesome thing, you know, sound. And And that can be really like fulfilling and rich and nice for me, even if it's like a kind of a gig where people aren't super engaged, like you're kind of a background music for like a corporate event that's doing a fundraiser for whatever. But you know, it's like even those gigs like where no one claps the whole time, and every time I finish, you walk up and like 3 people walk up like, oh man, that was so great, you know. And it's like, not every gig is a show. Sometimes gigs are your ambiance or your whatever, but you definitely can't do all that. I think if I did all that, I wouldn't want to keep doing music. Yeah. But you have to find that part of yourself where like, well, hey, that's what I've been thinking is like, I'm a craftsman. I'm a working musician, and like getting joy in that. And then when I have those shows that are really inspiring and people are like listening and engaged or dancing or doing their thing, and it inspires you in a different way. So
that's a good
but
way
you
to
know
put
the
it.
struggle though. Like you know the struggle. You know that struggle of like, oh man, playing this song for the 150th time and doesn't seem like anyone cares. Why do I do this? Like I should just break my guitars, right?
Well, it used to hurt me really deep when I would show up to a gig and like me and whoever I was playing with, we'd worked on a song really, really hard, and we had these really impeccable harmonies and just like these great parts, and you play it and nobody gives a shit.
And you nail it too.
You nailed it. And then you're just like, all right, we're going to play this cover that we just learned 5 minutes ago, and we'll try to stumble through it. And you play it and everybody's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And you're just like, okay, I get it. Not everybody has that same musician mind that we have, but like it kind of hurts sometimes to just be like, I just poured my heart and soul out to you, and you just didn't even, you didn't even bat an eye. But then I played your favorite music from 50 years ago, and you're like, that was so incredible. Thank you so much for playing that.
Yeah.
It can be hard sometimes.
I don't know. It's like, I like just don't even play, like I play covers, but it's like Robert Johnson or, freaking Fats Waller. Yeah. Or, sometimes at the weddings, we try to step it up and do like Johnny Cash, but it's like I don't have like I was just saying like I need to like learn like one hit of the year, like whatever, like the Bruno Mars one or the Bieber whatever, and just like throw it in this like jazzy way and just do it once a year, have like one a year or something. It's like, but at the end of the day, that's just not where my heart is. And it's like I think maybe I have it a little easier in some ways because it's like we're being hired typically, like we're hired as a hot club gypsy jazz band, so it's like and often it's like, well, how many covers do you do? They're like, they like hiring you for that, but they really want you to play like 50% like cover songs. Yeah. And I've been pretty explicit, like, hey, like if you want cover band, we're not it. So go get a different band. You're going to be happier. They're like, no, we want you. And then I'm like, okay, like that's cool. This
is the product.
But then you show up and maybe the 2 people that hired you, that's what they wanted. But the 95 other people that are there, they just want to hear their favorite Dixie Chicks cover or the Leonard Skinner song. Yeah. And you aren't just playing for the bride and the groom or for whoever booked you. You are playing to your room that you end up in, and you need to be flexible. Yeah. So we have that, and we've been able to traverse that, and we've been able to mix it up and vary it and still retain, some authenticity to what we're trying to do. But it's not the same expectation as being like a rock band or literally a cover band where your job is to show up and like play the hits, So I think we're fortunate in that respect, and it's been it's been good. But that pressure is still there from Aunt Carol that wants to hear but this is the classic line. You just played some song that's like frickin' 240 beats per minute. It's like a rockin' kind of swingy, just like super dancey tune if you're from 1948. Sure. And the swing dancers would be going crazy for it, and it's like real peppy and fun, but it's like swing music, so people don't necessarily know how to dance like swing music or whatever. And like Aunt, so and so will come up and they'll be like, hey, would you mind playing something a little upbeat? that's like the you ever get that?
Yeah, I've had some odd requests before.
Would you play something? Can you play something a little upbeat? And it's like, what is it's like we just played a song that was like 240 beats per minute. It doesn't really get more upbeat than that, It's like, but I know what she means. She means, can you play some random cover that everyone's heard of that's like slightly medium up that we can kind of just shake our butts to a little bit, and we need to do that too. But that's not necessarily what the bride and groom, they hired a like vintage hot club jazz band. If
Yeah.
for La Pompe, the Spoonful's cool. Like we have a drummer and we have electric guitar, and we can like lean into like a lot more of those covers and that stuff, and have it be a lot more convincing and a lot more dancey and fun. So it's fun to it's fun to switch it up. But
that's awesome. What about your solo stuff? You do because you write a lot of solo stuff and perform that as well.
Like just by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I basically created like David Lawrence and the Spoonful to be a kind of catch-all for. Obviously, if I'm just playing myself, I would just build David Lawrence. But I started that project like just David Lawrence musician or David Lawrence guitar or something, and I was playing a lot of solo, and I was like, well, I really want to get a full band involved with this, and there's happens to be many other David Lawrences out there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was like, let me get the tack it on there because I want to have my full band presentation. I want to make my album with my full band, but at the same time, I'm still going to do solo work under that name, but it'll be a lot easier for people to find me, follow me, and all that. And it's worked a lot better once I added that on the end. I feel like people have been able to remember it more, to find it more. But I definitely do a lot of solo work. I did like a once a month at Broadway Roxy. I did just all sorts of random privates, but then some gigs up in Longmont solo, and it's really fun. It's a totally different thing. It's very vulnerable, right? Right. You're not hiding behind a bass and a drums, and musically, it's like it's you. It's you and your voice and your guitar, and you really need to be totally present with it. But it's also freeing because I could play anything. Any little thing that I learned that morning, I can just whip it out and play it. Any style that I want to do, I can hit it, and I kind of like, I don't know if do you do any looping stuff?
I've tried, but I just never had the knack for it. I just never really gotten to a point. I always oversimplified it.
For any viewers out there, like there's like a whole genre of music that is basically like an instrumentalist or a vocalist or whatever it is, and you run like the microphone or your guitar pedal or whatever into a machine, and you step on it or you hit it, and it basically starts a recording. And then when you hit it again after 5 seconds or 15 seconds or a minute, it starts playing that back. So you could be like, and then you're like layering in all this stuff. And there's people out there that are so good at it. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, there's like top level, like Keller Williams is like known for that. I mean, there's like a lot of really big names that can do that, and it's really, really, really special and really cool. And when you were doing the solo thing, you have that pull. I don't know if everyone probably gets one, and they're like, let me try it out, And I quickly was just like, I don't think I'm that good at it. I think if I practiced you have to really practice. It's Definitely. It's like its own instrument basically. Yeah. But then the other thing for me was like, well, what if I just like got that second line with my thumb? What if I was playing my bass like dum, 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 and then I could use my fingers, and then I could sing, and I could have 3 lines. Yeah. I could have my fingers, my thumb, and my vocals, and really work on finger style, and really work on like creating that separation in my hand and in my voice and in my guitar, and that can satiate my desire to like create a more complex solo thing. And 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, when I started that, my finger style has gotten so much better than it is, than it was. And now I can, take interludes and take breaks and do little solos and really fill out like a cool sound without having to rely on the loop pedal, which, maybe I should work on it more, but to me, it's just people are so good at it, and it's its own sound, and there's a lot of drawbacks to it. Like, unless you're really, really good at it, like a lot of people that I hear, it's like you play the track and then that's it. There's like one dynamicism level, but music for me, I want it to build and pull down, and I want it to like move a lot, even maybe in the tempo, push in the tempo, pull back. Yeah. So there's a lot of things you can't do that. Once you have that pedal, your sound floor is only solo. Like you can't really drop down that much. And you can't speed up or slow it down. I mean, I'm talking out of my ass because people that are really good at it can do amazing things. I can't
they're
even
incredible
fathom with it. But
I'm with you though. I just, instead of doing that, I wanted to push myself to be able to be able to bring a new level of dynamics and whatnot just with my solo playing. How far can I push just one guitar and vocals?
It's super cool.
I don't subscribe to that, like, the slapping and all that stuff and like doing the percussion at the same time. But I've definitely found a way, I've definitely found a way to really pull people in, because just doing a crescendo or a decrescendo at the right time and just really evoking that emotion from both, or just like pulling back on the guitar so that my vocals can shine, or just like, doing a little bit of oohs and ahs as my guitar's kind of flying. I've just found new ways to just use only two things to just really create a lot of texture. That's a great way to put it.
I mean, some of the best like songs I know are like old blues guy that's just like clapping his hands and singing. And it's like, I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to listen to a 3-hour gig of that, but it's the point is that your use of dynamicism and texture, even if it's limited in what you have, just your voice and your guitar, it's just infinite what you can do with that. That's why the guitar is such a prolific instrument. That's why it's become so used, because it's so amazing. It's so amazing how much art you can create out of that freaking 6 strings and a wooden box in your voice. It's the probably the best, accompanist. I'm not saying that word right, but for vocals, like, it's just so perfectly matched to have the vocals and have the guitar. It's so cool. Yeah. But just the guitar itself, like when I started writing songs and writing music because I was a poet. And I loved poetry and composing cool little turns of phrases and rhyming. And I got really into slam poetry. Okay. And the kind of rhythmicness of slam poetry. I was actually the youngest slam master at the regional Birmingham, Alabama slam. Nice. In 2000, I don't know, when I was like 22 or something like that in college. That's cool. And we got last place, I believe, out of 25 teams, but it was really fun. What an experience, and it was really cool, and I was super into that. And then I was like, realized that like no one really cared about my poems, and I probably need to like put some music to it. So I got a guitar, and then I think a lot of people like that. I know a lot of people like that, and they've always really kind of focused on their voice and like the words and stuff. But for whatever reason, the second I grabbed the guitar, I forgot about poetry, forgot about everything. It was like all about the guitar. It was like, how do you make this machine turn into sound? Oh my God. And I just was obsessed with trying to get better as a guitar player. And now it's funny, like, especially with jazz, it's a really full circle. Like, I feel like I have a pretty strong kind of knowledge of the harmony of the chords and the melodies. And I have a big kind of palette of different colors of chords to choose from, and definitely from the jazz, like the songs that I've learned. And now when I go back to write a song, I just feel like I have so many options, and it's really freeing. And then I've really come full circle. Like, I've been writing a lot more original music now. Like, it's coming a lot more naturally to me. I've actually started teaching some songwriting workshops. Very cool. And having like a little bit more of a system in my head for how I approach it and how I think about it and all that stuff. I'm going to come sit in one of those. That'd be awesome. Yeah, we could trade. Where do you get your inspiration? Like, what really drives you to write this material when you're writing? I've obviously been thinking about it a lot, because when you're trying to do a songwriting workshop, you have to kind of break it down. But it's like the way that I think about songwriting and creativity is that I am trying to keep my heart and my mind and my inner creative eye open all the time to images or phrases that are very image oriented. I talk to the students a lot about like early, like I did this a lot in my early poetry, and early songwriters, like people that are starting, they're like, what's the point of art, right? And music, it's like, it's to convey a feeling, right? So it's like, well, I'm feeling really sad, and I'm feeling hurt, and I'm feeling these things. And when you first start writing poetry and songs, you say that. You say, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling whatever. But as you get more honed on it, you realize that the best way to make someone else evoke something is not to say the emotion, but it's to give them an image that evokes something. And maybe that image isn't going to evoke the exact feeling that you have, but that's not really even what art is, right? Like, you don't have to exactly convey like I'm sad because my, whatever happened, it's about just evoking something and something authentic and real. And sometimes the best art is it evokes different things for everyone, but it almost all comes from like an image that you can really kind of feel and wrap your head around. So I think of like phrases. I'll think of phrases. Sometimes I'll think of like a full concept of the song, of like what I want the concept of the song to be. And I'll think a little bit more conceptually, but then I'll think of like, well, what are the images that are going to like relate to that concept? And then I'll like leave it. It's like, I won't like, sometimes I'll like go to the guitar and then try to write it, but it's like I almost like I'm building this catalog of things. And I know a lot of other people that think like this, and they write it down, or they have like a journal, or they do that stuff. And then when they're going to write the song, they'll kind of look at that list. For me, I think I have a good memory with it, or I don't even know if I call it a memory, but I don't write it down, but there is this like kind of running catalog. And then I'll just be sitting there fiddling with the guitar, and I'll come up with something interesting. And then without trying to impose any of those ideas onto it, I'll maybe start improvising some vocal melody lines or something like that. And then something will come up. Something will pop out that feels like the perfect meshing of whatever the like, because like the chords and the melody evokes something too. It's not just words that evoke a feeling. It's just the music evokes a feeling. So when you find that feeling in the music and it like spontaneously pulls, for me, it feels like it's like spontaneously pulling out one of those old images and ideas that I heard on NPR, or I saw when I was driving down to the gig. And then like, and that little magical alchemy happens. Yeah. Where the feeling of the music pulled out the feeling of the song, and then I'm on the journey, and then I start writing, and I start scribbling, and I start singing, and I just will go for 20 minutes on the same thing and sing, for 20 minutes, and then wow, that was a good line, or that was a bad line, and hone in on it and stuff. So.
Have you ever used songwriting as like a healing process for yourself?
I've definitely used song singing and song just making music is really healing for me. Like, especially like breakups and stuff, to have like, I almost like had this like list of songs I would sit there and like sing, like old B.B. King songs and some old country songs, and it's very healing in that respect. But I have a hard time, like I do have a really hard time like writing for a thing, Like sometimes I'm like, I want to like write this thing because I'm feeling this way and I want to try to get it out, and like that never works for me. But I sent you guys one of my songs that I wrote, and this is a good example of both answering your question and tying in with like the way that my process has been for songwriting. But I had this thought, let's backtrack. My very good best friend, Jason, killed himself when I think he was 19 and I was 20. It was like junior year of college. And I was living down in Virginia, and he was going to CSU in Fort Collins, and ended up kind of dropping out and going back home. And he was going through like a lot of hard times, unbeknownst to everyone in our family, his family, our friend group, and everything. His girlfriend was pregnant. So that was weighing in on him, and not being in school and feeling like maybe he was failing, or who knows all the levels of it. But one very, very drunken, empty Jack Daniel bottle night, we got the call the next morning, and I was home in New Jersey, and it was a big deal for all of us, and it still is. 14 years later.
Yeah.
And I had, I'm sure you've experienced this. I think everyone's experienced this, but you have a dream of someone you lost, right? And I used to have these, I still do sometimes. I have these dreams of Jason and other people I've lost in my life. And I get this immense feeling of like happiness because it's like I get to see them again.
Oh, wow, yeah.
You know, like it's like in my dream, like, hey, I at least I get to be with you for a little bit, you know, this like beautiful feeling of like, and it's like usually in the dream, it's like confusing. Like it feels like they're gone, but then they're back and you're like confused. Like, where have you been? Like, why did you like leave? Like, oh, that was all a charade. That wasn't real. Like, this is real. We're together now. And then I wake up and it's not real. Yeah. And when the first time it happened, it was like super sad. But then when it's happened to me more and more, it's like not sad. It's like, it's this good feeling that I get because it's like at least I got to see him in my dreams again.
That's really powerful.
And I had that feeling like I wanted to write that song.
Yeah. And
I had that thought like 8 years ago that I wanted to write that song. And then one Christmas, my sister-in-law, she got a good chunk of change. She sent out a message to everyone in my life. David, and this is, after La Pompe, I have my La Pompe stuff. He's like, David has his solo project. I just started doing my solo stuff more. David has his solo project. He said he doesn't want to record an album because he doesn't want to do that, but like, screw that. Let's pool up some money together and let's get him some studio time and have him perform the solo album. Wow. So she gave it to me at Christmas, and this is like probably about 3 years ago. And I got that little certificate, and I just was reading all the names of people from my past, people I haven't seen in a long time. Yeah. And I had this thought that was like, you can't make this solo album until you write Jason's song. And I was fiddling with this chord progression like right before she did that. That had this feeling in it. And then I went upstairs and I said, he visits me sometimes when I'm asleep. There's so much to say. He just smiles back at me. And it just, the whole thing, like start to finish, every verse, every line, I wrote it in 2 hours by myself, crying super hard. And then brought everyone downstairs and was like, okay, I'm doing this song. And I did it for them. And it was like, I didn't think when I had that thought that I needed to write the song for the album, I didn't think it was going to be that night. Yeah. But that's what it's like for me. Yeah. It's like sometimes that right chord progression or the right idea pulls out that thing in you that's been sitting dormant for a long time. So, yeah. Well, I think we have it.
Let's give it a listen. Now that we have the backstory, that's incredible, man. Yeah. Let's give it a listen.
I filmed this, so the song was recorded on the so I have a solo album that's just me and the guitar, and I really like it. It's a little bit more on the demo side. It's not like super produced. It's very stripped down, and it has a lot of great original songs on there. This next thing I'm putting out is the full thing, but this one we ended up doing a live version of it, and me and Jason, our friendship was developed through the love of rock climbing. Oh, cool. So we both were on like a rock climbing team and went to nationals. I ended up going to the World Cup in Scotland for rock climbing when I was a kid. Wow. And so when me and Eric, the fiddle player from La Pompe, he did the videography and stuff for this one, I was like, we need to go to rocks and go to a mountain. And we went up to the top of that mountain in Golden and did this little song. So.
All right, let's check it out.
visits me sometimes when I'm asleep. I hug him so hard, I even kiss him on the cheek. I ask him where he's been and why he doesn't call me. He just shrugs his shoulders, says he's kinda busy. It satisfies my question, 'cause I'm looking in his eyes. It's been too many years, my tears have long dried, and we go do something stupid like it's just yesterday. Running on the train tracks and drinking whiskey. I forget where I'm going, I forget where I've been. Forget that one phone call that changed how I live. Oh, I'm lost in this moment, I'm holding on tight. I need this damn dream to last more than one night. Oh, he visits me sometimes. He visits me sometimes. Ooh, ooh, ooh. He visits me sometimes when I'm asleep. There's so much to say, he just smiles back at me. And I want him to like the man I've become. Mostly I just want to outrun the sun. Well, it feels like he's back from a long exodus. Mistake was made, a detour was missed, a second chance given, or a new beginning. It ends when he tells me he's leaving again, and it's hard waking up to remember he's gone, and aching my heart like a subtle sad song. But I look at the pillow, I think a deep rest. At least for one night I get to be with my friend. Oh, he visits me sometimes. He visits me sometimes. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Nice thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think that was just absolutely incredible. And, just like we were talking about earlier, I can see your dynamics and I can see the flow of what you're feeling as you're playing. And that's just such an incredible thing to see from my fellow musicians when you do that, because it's just powerful, man. That's a really great song. Really incredible, man.
It was hard to perform it. I don't perform. I've only performed that live for an audience one time. When I did that was probably one of the only takes we got where I didn't cry too hard. Yeah. I teared up like during it, but it was like there's a line in it that gets me every time. And I want him to like the man I've become. Mm-hmm. I don't know why that line gets me, because it's just, maybe it's because it's just like, I don't know, like he didn't get to become anything. Yeah. And it's like that separation, that feeling. But yeah, it's cool how music works like that. I would say, that song, like, I don't know, was that song healing for me? I think it's healing for me, because it's like, life is like, you hold on to all these things in your life, all this like pain and all these hard things we all have, and you have to express them. You have to let them out, and through art, through talking, through whatever you do to do that, and crying, and if the art is the way that helps you to express it, that's healing and that's beautiful. Yeah. At the very least, it's working with it. But yeah, I mean, you know that I was telling you that this has been a really hard year for me. I mean, when you reached out to me about this podcast, I mean, a little bit of it was about, I think a little bit of it was about the challenge that musicians have been going through, you know, through COVID. I mean, everyone's been going through a really challenging time. If you're a full-time professional musician and your livelihood was, you know, taken away. I mean, there's a lot that has been taken from us, including, I don't want to trivialize massive amount of death and people's families and stuff that have been taken from them. And I feel really fortunate that hasn't happened in my family, in my close circle. But it's obviously been like economically and for a lot of people very stressful. And it was for me, but it was more, there was just a lot. For me, it was all this other shit going on in my life. Me and my wife have, we've suffered like 3 miscarriages in like 1 year's time. So we moved into a new house, and we've been knowing we wanted to start a family, and it was just been super freaking hard. And then to have that, and it's been hard for me as a partner, because it's like it's like hitting me hard, like those losses, but like in some ways it's almost like harder to like see my wife, to bear witness to this pain that she's going through, and to try to be supportive of her. And in some ways I feel like maybe I was like holding back some of my own pain or my own feelings because I'm like trying to be strong or be like supportive to her, which doesn't really work. Like, it's better to just like feel your own feelings and be in that space with that person. But I think I was kind of like holding back and like not feeling it as much, even though it did hit me really hard, and I've had a lot of tears from those experiences. But then 2 days before our first podcast was scheduled, my little cat got hit by a car and died. And I, holding him and bringing him off the street to go, get cremated and stuff. And I realized in that moment that like all this pain that we've been working with and struggling with these last few years, like that cat was like my little guy. And like that loss just took all the loss and all the grief and everything that I've been working with, and I'm still in it. I mean, this was just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and it just built it all up, and it just broke me. Yeah. It felt like I was a broken man. And then I had to go to the gig because I talked to Paula over at Broadway Roxy, and the day it happened, and she was like, "Yeah, you're good. Don't come in. We'll figure it out, But then it was like, "Hey, got a gig in Paonia. Then we got a freaking big fundraiser thing, and we got a wedding, and then I mean, I had 6 gigs in 5 days following that, and it was like, nobody cares about your dead cat, bud. I mean, people do care, but." It's like you got to keep working, and all I could do to get through it, well, my bandmates are the best in the world, and they were like super supportive of me and like cared about me and didn't push me and just let me talk and let me cry if I needed to, do whatever I need to do. And they, are privy to the other things in my life that have been going on. But it's just like, just that feeling of like, well, the power of music can hopefully pull you through, fake it till you make it. And tell you what, when I got on stage that first performance after, and I looked over at Eric, and I had this feeling of like, oh, I don't want to be here. And I was like sulky and getting upset. And then I was like, what is that going to do to you? Like, is that going to serve you? Are you going to like feel better because you're just sulking on stage right now? Is that good for the audience? Is that good for the venue? Who's that good for? Like, it's good for nobody. So why don't you just listen to these songs, be with your bandmates, be with the audience, and make the best of it. And you can go cry after. And it felt good. It felt very cathartic to like be like, you know, I'm in these songs and I'm going to perform and I'm going to be with my bandmates and I'm going to do it. And that's what helped me get through that time. And so in a big way, music definitely helped to heal me. Maybe in some ways music helped to, maybe it wasn't healing. Maybe it was like distracting me.
Yeah.
But no, you know, it's a fine line when you're going through a painful thing of like what you need there. But
like you said, I mean, you were feeling those feelings even at that gig. And I think that is one thing that is so hard for a lot of people to reconcile with, is that if we're going to get past something, like we have to feel those feelings to be able to move past, because that's one thing that I love to do in the past, is run away from those feelings, because I could find distractions that I would, you know, just bring to myself. I would always be like, well, I'm really sad, but guess what? I can go do something else and just not think about it. And, you know, does that really truly help you, or does that just kind of evade what you're really trying to go through, you know? And so I think that that's really strong and really awesome of you, that you were like, I'm feeling this right now and I want to distract myself, but like, let's just feel it and let's just use it and let's just keep on kind of playing this music and just really just putting that emotion out there. And you just have to feel it just to get past it. And so I think that's just amazing that you not only do that, but then of course it took you 8 years or whatever it was, but you still wrote that song for Jason.
And in
you know?
another 8 years, I'll have a song for those babies that never made it here for us, and or Oscar or whatever those feelings are. That Oscar's the name of my cat.
And in 50 years, you'll be able to play them without crying, you know?
Yeah. If people want an album of a bunch of sappy songs, then they'll get it. No. I was like, Tony before the interview, I was like, I don't want people to get the wrong message that I only write like sappy, sad songs. I have some of those. I have a lot of other fun ones too. But yeah, I don't know. I think the big thing that's gotten me through this, like, so me and my wife we're pregnant again.
Congratulations.
That's going to be news to the world when we, when this podcast comes out. I mean, hey, was it?
Cheers.
Knock on wood. Well, I'm not going to cheers because I don't have any left in here, but knock on wood. You never know what can happen. We're really hopeful that this will continue to flourish and grow healthy and stuff. And by the time this comes out, hopefully that is still the case. But it was like all this weird auspicious timing of like finding out about that and like being really hopeful about this new baby, and then my little fur baby Oscar dying. And then I just like the biggest thing that's getting me through this and getting me onto this next chapter of my life and trying to get me to like grow was this feeling that like that little cat taught me what it meant to love something outside of myself that I had to care for, that I had to like, because the reason it was very impactful, I think, was because it was my first real pet, like my pet, you know, my thing that was like my responsibility. Like family pets are different, you know, and it was like the act of like waking up and like shoveling their shit out of their litter box and like making sure they have food and making sure their water's fresh and like all these like acts of like chores. They felt like acts of service and like love. And I like realized like, obviously when you have like kids, it's like 10 trillion times harder than a fucking cat. But like there's this, it taught me that there's a joy in service and that there is a sense of joy in doing something that's not for yourself and doing something for something that you love. And obviously there's going to be a lot of like really hard times when I'm going to like laugh at myself thinking this now, not having a kid. But I know that a part of me is always going to remember that lesson of like what it meant to like have that love of service and that love of like something outside of yourself. And he taught me that, and he'll be with me for the rest of my life as I think about that and as I try to understand what that means. So I guess that, you know, he'll be there, and that's okay, and I can kind of get through this next chapter and like learning what that means. So yeah, it's hard. It's still raw for me, obviously, because it was just pretty recently, but I was kind of excited to come and talk to you because it's like, You know, we're just talking, like, you have to get it out, and like talking, and you know, it's like I don't even have to pay you for a therapy session. I'm getting it for free right now.
Yeah. Isn't the power of just talking about stuff just so amazing? Just sometimes just getting it off your chest and just having, you know, anybody, not necessarily a paid therapist, but just a good friend or just somebody who's willing to sit and listen to you. I think there's so much power in that, and I think that, you know, that's something that I try to be for my friends, because I know that I've been on the other side of it. I've been the one that needs my friends to be there and just let me talk for 20 minutes and let me cry and, you know, just drink a beer with me or whatever. So I think it's super powerful, and I'm just so stoked that, like,
we're doing it.
You're opening up about all this, because I know it's not easy sometimes. I know it's very easy to feel overwhelmed, but I know that it feels so good when you can finally express yourself and talk about it. So
I've just never been the type of person that can have the ability to hold back where I am in my present moment. It's just like, some ways it's like, should probably develop that skill a little better. But it's like, it's like if I like went through this whole process, this whole interview, and it was like talked about some of my past, and you know that I like guitar. You know, it could be an entertaining and fun thing or whatever it is, but it was like, it'd be impossible for me to do it. It's like, how can I be here and not talk about these like huge things that are happening in my heart, and shifts and like growth and all this stuff? And it's like, you know, to your credit, I knew that you would be the type of person that could be there, but not everyone is. Like, you know, there's certain people that like, they're afraid of, they haven't expressed their own emotional pain or whatever, their own emotions enough. They've like suppressed them. I think a lot of people do it because they don't want to be like a burden on other people.
Oh, definitely.
So or maybe when they were a kid, like they expressed stuff and their parents were like, oh, you don't cry or whatever. And they like pushed it down. So like, there's all these people that like, they've indoctrinated themselves to think that like sharing emotions is bad, and I'm going to be a hindrance on other people. So I need to just deal with it myself and blah, blah, blah. And then those people generally are kind of scared of other people's emotional stuff too. So they kind of put up a wall to it, and they're like, don't really want to relate to it, because if they have to relate to your pain, then they have to relate to their own pain, and they don't know how to fucking do that. So, whoa, buddy, you know, and you know, I know you well enough. We're knowing each other a lot more after this, but well enough to know that you're not that type of person. You're the type of person that is like open-hearted, you know, and
thank you.
That's why it's beautiful to have this conversation and do it. Thanks,
man. Wow. Again, I just can't even thank you enough for just coming on and opening up to us. It's been really incredible. Why don't you tell people where they can find your music?
Well, yeah, let's do a little promo.
Shamelessly, just do it.
Shameless promo. The project that I'm really excited that I'm trying to grow and pursue is my solo full band album, David Lawrence and the Spoonful. So the best way to find that project is davidlawspoonful.com. If this airs in early October, there's going to be a show at the Broadway Roxy on October 15th. And Tom LaFond we're doing a co-bill. He's going to have his trio, or his band is going to be there. My full band's going to be there. We're going to play together. It's going to be super fun. I'm putting out a single on Spotify in November for a song called Seeds We Sow. And then the full-length album is going to be out sometime early next year, whenever we can keep working on it and making it happen. So that's the best way. And then for my Gypsy Jazz, Hot Club Jazz project, you just go lapompeband.com, LAPOMPE band.com, and then you can see all the jazzy stuff there too. So big thank you for having me on.
Man, it's my pleasure.
And I'll send you the early, I just got the mix track back for the single. Oh, I just put out a little teaser online too, so you can hear like a few seconds of it on so I'm going to be doing that. But
I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. Again, I'm your host, Tony G. Thanks for stopping by with The Flow Within. It's been so much fun to hang out with Dave Lawrence, and definitely go see a show with this guy at either of his projects, because they're so much fun, and he plays with a lot of really talented musicians. So thank you guys very much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.